Why don't you explain, though, to our viewers, when you talk about waving the white flag of surrender, what that means, what you believe the president is settling for instead of what he is pushing for as far as creating jobs, growth, new opportunity for small business owners across Louisiana and America. Explain that.
Sure. Look, the government policy right now is a complete mess, whether it's higher taxes, more borrowing, more spending, our foreign policy. And it seems to me like the White House has seized on the minimum wage increase as their one silver bullet. They're going to campaign on that, talk about that. The reality is we've got a 36-year record low in terms of the percentage of our people in the workforce. We've got folks dropping out. According to their own projections, unemployment was supposed to be by 5% this year. It's instead at 6.7%. If you count the people that dropped, it's actually over 10%. If this president were really serious, if he was laser focused on creating good-paying jobs, not just minimum wage jobs, good-paying jobs, the Keystone Pipeline would have been approved years ago. We wouldn't need 5 years of studies. We would do more exploration for oil and gas on federal lands, not just private lands. We'd rein in the EPA, the excessive regulations. I asked him specifically, we're all worried about the cost of higher education. Why not break up the monopolies, give real choice to K-12 students, give real accreditation flexibility to the states to open up more paths to higher education for non-traditional students? There are specific things this president could be doing if he was seriously focused on creating good-paying jobs. Instead, now we've got a larger government. The economy is growing. What I fear is the new normal. 2 to 3% is not robust growth. This is not. We can do better than this. You know, his own policies. Obamacare, over 2 million fewer people in the workforce. You look at even the CBO said about the minimum wage, over 500,000 jobs that would disappear. That we can do better than this as a country, and I just think that the president's given up. I think he's focused on campaign rhetoric and tactics instead of real serious policies. We could have had a substantive meeting where we could have said, Mr. President, here are specific things you could do with your pen. You said you want to go around Congress. Here are specific things you can do. Instead, we get the same old rhetoric. And, you know, look, I'm not really sorry for saying it, but to those that are offended that I didn't follow the NGA etiquette book, the reality is the substance is more important. This isn't about, and by the way, some of those same Democrats were pretty vocally critical against President Bush. So I think this is a new standard. I know Democrats sometimes don't like the Second Amendment. I thought they were still for freedom of speech in the First Amendment. So I'm a little surprised. Instead of having a debate about the substance, they just act offended. You know, I know they're trying to defend their guy and they're trying to defend their team, but this is about the American people. This is not about Democrats and Republicans.
Chuck, jump in.
Governor, you mentioned the CBO and the minimum wage and what they were rating it as at $10. Where are you at $9? Where are you at putting it with the rate of maybe up with the rate of inflation? I mean, it does seem as if it is absurdly low, and you bring it up a little bit. The CBO said if you brought it up to $9, net neutral on that, would that be a proposal you could support?
A couple of things. Actually, CBO gave a range of how many jobs would be, you know, they give a range of how many jobs that could be lost. Look, I'm not ideologically opposed to ever raising minimum wage. When I was in Congress, I voted to raise the minimum wage. I think we do need to I do think we need to help people that are working. My concern is that we're in such a weak economy right now. We don't need to be doing anything to discourage people from getting private sector jobs. So I'm not saying never raise the minimum wage. I'm just saying this shouldn't be the president's total economic package and proposal. No, I don't think it's a good idea to do it right now when the economy is so faltering, when we're at risk of burdening small businesses. But no, absolutely, I'd be for, as a part of a more robust economic recovery, to raise the minimum wage. I'm not saying never do it. Here's the concern. You've got folks dropping out of the workforce. We can do better as a country. What happened to the hope and change? What happened to the ambitious rhetoric from this president? You know, the world was going to heal with his election. Now we're left with a minimum wage economy. Republicans don't want folks living on the minimum wage. We want them to have good-paying jobs. Mr. President, approve the Keystone Pipeline, tens of thousands of good-paying jobs. Open up oil and gas production, hundreds of thousands of good-paying jobs, according to many, many estimates.
So, Governor, I'm going to take it to Mike Barnacle, but this minimum wage economy and this economy that's completely focused on the minimum wage, I think might be pushing it too far. I think there are other policies that he's putting in place as well. Mike Barnacle, jump in.
Governor, listening to you speak, the last time the Census Bureau checked the per capita income of Louisiana, you were 47th lowest in the United States, not all under your watch. What have you done as governor to bring in all these better paying jobs and boost your people's per capita income?
Well, the great thing is we're doing exactly what the president's not. We've cut taxes. reformed ethics, invested in workforce training, make it easier for businesses to create jobs. And here's the record. In Louisiana, we now have more people working, highest incomes in our state's history, larger population than ever before. And the president can't say all those things about the country. Our economy has grown 50% faster than the national GDP, even since the national recession. Our per capita income ranking now is the highest that it's been in 80 years. The reality is, in Louisiana, our unemployment rate has been below the national average every single month during the national recession, during the last several years. We're right now, objective economists are saying we're on the cusp of a manufacturing renaissance, the likes we haven't seen in decades. In Louisiana, we've got economic development projects worth over $50 billion, over 80,000 new jobs coming into my state. So we've outperformed the national economy. Yeah, we're hurt by the Obama economy, the Obama minimum wage economy, but we're actually doing better than the country. Highest incomes ever in our state history, highest ranking in 80 years. Economy's growing 50% faster than the national economy, record amounts of capital investment and jobs coming into the state. It's not rocket science. We did it by cutting taxes, cutting government spending, investing in workforce training. These are the kinds of things the president should be doing at the national level. We've also implemented school choice. We're fighting to give our kids, by the way, against the president's own Department of Justice, we're fighting to give our people the ability to get a great education and get a great paying job. After over 25 years of losing people without migration, last 6 years in a row, since I've been governor, we've had more people move into the state rather than leave the state, so people are voting with their feet. So I think we're showing in Louisiana that these policies work.
Thomas Roberts.
Governor, this is Thomas Roberts in New York. You're inextricably tied to what the president does because Louisiana does not have a state-mandated minimum wage. Right now it's $7.25 there, along with several other southern states. So what is the message to your lawmakers if you don't want to wait for the president? Why don't you try to raise the minimum wage in your own state on your own and join 45 other states that have their own setting?
Well, look, again, as I said earlier, I'm not ideologically opposed to ever raising minimum wage. I just don't think now is the right moment when you've got a record low. Right now, if you count on the people that have dropped out, according to one study, if we had a normal participation rate in our economy, the unemployment rate across this country wouldn't just be 6.7%. It'd be over 10%. We don't need to be doing things to make it harder for people to go to work. And that's what when I talk about the president's minimum wage economy, it seems like he is comfortable pursuing policies that actually expand the number of people on government programs rather than good-paying private sector jobs. So my message to our legislators in D.C. or in Baton Rouge would be, let's stop trying to create minimum wage jobs. Let's create good-paying jobs. And there are things we can do if we will get government out of the way. And there are things the president can do even without Congress. He could be creating today. If he looked at those 10 recommendations, could create millions of good-paying jobs for people in Louisiana and across the country.
Yeah, of course, Bobby, we have been seeing over the past couple of weeks, and I know a lot of people watching may disagree with this, a lot of people on the set may disagree with it, but I think you and I probably agree. We've seen over the past couple of weeks CBO reports that are, of course, telling us why the policies that the president's pursuing are going to actually cost jobs. And the debate's going to be over how many jobs the health care program's going to cost, because it's going to encourage people not to work as hard, certain people not to work as hard, and encourage them to stay home because the way the benefit structure is set out, that's actually in their best long-term economic interest for themselves and their family. Then, of course, you have the same debate about minimum wage, which, of course, as I say every day here, doesn't go from the rich corporations to struggling Americans. It's, as Charles Krauthammer says, and I'm sure you believe it too, in a lot of cases, you're just talking about an income redistribution from a group of 4 Americans to another group of 4 Americans. So I want to be very clear before we go, and we're almost out of time, but just explain again very briefly about what Republicans think and what conservatives think we should be doing instead of debating policies that the CBO says will cost Americans jobs. What do we do moving forward to pull middle-class Americans and working-class Americans back up into a position where they're not falling further behind every year?
That's exactly right. Look, the middle class has fared almost very, very poorly under the Obama economy, and that's not by accident. These policies intentionally discourage work, lock in inequality. There's a reason that D.C. is the boomtown in the Obama economy. In terms of what we can do differently, look, a domestic energy renaissance will create good-paying manufacturing jobs in the steel industry and the fertilizer industries. They're already investing billions of dollars in Louisiana. They could do that across the country. If we rein in the EPA, one of the things I suggested to the president was if we had a regulatory budget before they do new costly regulations, get rid of outdated costly regulations. They do that in the UK. There's a bill to do that in the House. There are things we can do that would create a robust private sector economy instead of making more people